the trickle-down effect with adding CHL players to NCAA is just going to disrupt a little bit of the development in the United States. And that's the issue that I have with it, just because I can have empathy for those kinds of kids, right? Who like spend their whole life just trying to play college hockey, and now the Canadian kids can kind of come in and take that from us, which is a little bit annoying.
They took her down.
They took her. But
build the wall.
In the bigger picture, though,
Sean brought up he wanted to get educated a little more on the CHL players being eligible to play in NCAA next year. We haven't talked about it at all, but that is a recent development. As of, I believe, late last month, they're going to allow CHL players, which is OHL, WHL, QMJHL, to play in NCAA. Previously, those were considered professional athletes or professional leagues by the NCAA, so they weren't allowed to play in there. And if you know anything about the NCAA, they're such bitches when it comes to, oh, that's a professional athlete. That's a professional league. Now this person isn't allowed to be here. What is your feel on all of this, and how do you like it?
I mean, I think it's better for the NCAA product. We're going to see more talented guys, I think, in college hockey with the addition of the CHL. But, for me personally, I've said this like on a personal level, it kills kids like me. Because I was a North American Hockey League product. That's tier 2 junior. So, in Canada, they have the BCHL, and in America, we have the North American Hockey League. The USHL is number one, end all be all. And, typically college, scouts would come to the NAL games to find like a guy like me to play on like a third, fourth line in college, right? An older guy, more developed. I was a 20-year-old playing junior, and, those kids are ready to step into college and like just fill out a roster spot essentially. So you look at the BCHL and the North American League now, those are probably going to be like D3 level junior leagues, right? So I think the trickle-down effect with adding CHL players to NCAA is just going to disrupt a little bit of the development in the United States. And that's the issue that I have with it, just because I can have empathy for those kinds of kids, right? Who like spend their whole life just trying to play college hockey, and now the Canadian kids can kind of come in and take that from us, which is a little bit annoying.
They took her down.
They took her. But
build the wall.
In the bigger picture, though, I love that episode. In the bigger picture, I do think the NHL like has to work with the NCAA and CHL to make it almost one path
streamline
to college, right? Because if that's what we want our end goal to be, college to be like the stepping stone essentially into the NHL, because for the most part, it's not really the AHL. Like the AHL is a developmental league, but so many of today's stars come straight from college.
Yeah.
So if they can do that, and I know there has been conversations in the past of, and I know there's like so many different ways to go about this, but changing the draft age to 19, because then you can have the best of both worlds, right? Like guys can go play in the CHL till they're 18 years old and, get the most out of that experience, and then play college for 1 year, where the college experience is so much better just for having that one person playing it for a year. You think about a guy like Jack Hughes, who's drafted at 18 years old, who never played college. He could have gone to, let's say, University of Michigan for 1 year, and it makes college hockey grow that much more, having a guy like Jack Hughes play. So
I also think that's really interesting from a fan perspective too, because then you have a base, like you have a more baseline knowledge of who a player is heading into the draft. Yeah. So like, I think that would very much increase the interest in college hockey to be like, all right, this person is heading into the draft. I have more availability to watch him like in the United States maybe than like watching a player in junior in Canada. So
I don't even know how to watch an OHL game. I've never watched an OHL game online. Unless it's on like NHL Network.
So I was saying, like, I don't want to take away the OHL's.
You're not. They can still play in the OHL.
Right.
And then when they turn like 18 or 19, have 1 year in college.
But I'm saying, like, I don't know if I want, like, I want to have those.
But
guys,
those elite kids get drafted at 16 in the OHL.
But I want to have like the Anthony Camara year whatever in the OHL dominating, when that's just not the player that they are, but they're older and they're bigger. So this guy who's not going to be a stud in the NHL is just feasting on the stars of tomorrow. Like, that's a fun little wrinkle there. But I agree with what you're saying. And I think overall, it definitely makes the college product better, which is good. Yeah. In doing so, of course, it pushes other players down. But the whole thing has been discombobulated forever. Even the fact with, like, you brought up the AHL. because the transfer agreement with the CHL, how many star players don't even get to go and develop in the AHL because it's either you're playing in the NHL or you're going back to junior, and the only young guys who could do that were like the David Pasternaks or the William Nylanders of the world, who were just playing in a different junior league. Each league has a different transfer agreement, and it just feels, as I said, discombobulated. I think overall, though, this is definitely a net positive for the NCAA, and I hope it's a step in kind of giving up this bitchy, like, everything that isn't us is professional. So, like, we were talking before the show, like the Bruins draft Charlie McAvoy, and he can't be in camp because if he signs his entry-level deal,
even like gets per diem.
Right.
Yeah.
Like then, now he's a professional player. He can't come back to school. No, he's coming back to school just the same way that a junior player would be in a camp. And then when they don't make the team, they get returned. Like they were at a professional camp, but they didn't make the team. Yeah. So they're not professional. So that's like my little rant, but I think I'm kind of preaching to the choir.
No, there's also, I see a comment from Neil Simmons in the chat too, like Celebrini and Fantilli, 2 Canadian kids who came to the States so they can, play in college, right? They played in the USHL. They both played for the Chicago Steel so they can go play college. Like now there's no reason for those guys to come to the States, like to play junior hockey, right? Like, so the Canadian kids who are those top recruits to play junior hockey, like that's going to hurt the USHL a little bit.
Give me winners and losers of this then, because USHL sounds like a huge loser in this. Yeah.
I'd probably say it hurts them the most, I would think.
And we'll say, and I don't say this in a derogatory term, but like elite truly does mean like the tippity top of like the 5%, like non-elite junior prospects.
Yeah. Yeah. Like a B plus B level prospect.
Yeah.
It hurts. But also I kind of lost my train of thought. There was one other thing I wanted to bring up. Keep talking and I'll think about it for a second.
Winners, NCAA
for sure, and I think NHL too.
NHL winners. So it's
good. From my perspective, like those are the 2 things that I care about the most.
Yeah, I read this as like awesome. Finally, thank God. What was your other point?
No, the other point was like, and I was talking to a college coach about this. It felt like we're at a point where USA Hockey is now like winning, right? Like we're winning the battle between like USA Hockey and Hockey Canada, right? Like we're getting their guys to come to the States and play in the United States development leagues. So why are we now catering to them when we had the edge in the battle?
Do you think this changes under the new presidency? Because Biden was like, yeah, come on over. We don't care.
Yeah.
Trump's going to be like,
a
lot of Canadians.
But there's going to be so many different little factors and complications that go into it. But what I hope is to one day have like a North American junior league that is just a merge of the CHL and the USHL.
That's kind of like what I was wondering too. Like, what is the possibility for like a college hockey versus junior hockey type like event or crossover?
That's tricky. I mean, the NTDP plays college teams every year.
Yeah.
But that technically is junior hockey. I don't know if they could, I don't know how they would do that. Maybe if they had like an undrafted NCAA showcase versus a undrafted junior.
I like that.
Like something like that. Like, highlight guys who haven't been picked in the draft.
I think that if I speak for Sean, definitely, if there were just more showcases in like NHL markets where they were like, hey, this weekend in Boston, for example, there's I used to do this at like minor league ballparks where they'd be like, hey, like bunch of like a Cape League team is going to play here tonight or whatever. Like, fuck yeah. Let me go see the guy who's going to get drafted 8th overall and is going to hit 1 million home runs. I want to go see that. And then down the road, I can say I saw him. Like, even if it's at the NHL All-Star game, imagine having like a CHL college like showdown thing at one of the events. That would be as exciting as anything else they'd put on there.
Well, I really want to expand on Pete's point, actually, of just like knowing who players are when they're drafted, because I think why football, the NFL and NBA are so popular is because all the focus is on the college athletes, right? Like, you know, my friends are huge Jets fans and they know who the left tackle of Ole Miss is when he gets picked. And I'm like, how the hell do you, it's because we watch every Saturday like that. So I think when we talk about like growing the game, if you grow the college game, which is now a primary focus if the CHL is going to the NCAA, then all these fans will know who these guys are when they're drafted. And if you push that to age 19, this is something that Colby Cohen says, you know, my co-host on our show, he says, the NHL draft is drafting prospects, not players. Where the NFL, NBA, you're drafting guys who are playing right away. You're drafting players. So if we can push that back 1 year, like think about Connor Bedard's struggles right now, and he just turned 19.
Easy.
You know, like
but he was good that's the only thing like that would be the downside to me is blocking 18-year-olds who are theoretically ready.
Yeah, but a lot of them do struggle.
Sean, did you have something?
Well, I was gonna ask, like, we heard Merrick talking about this, like Youngstown and Muskegon leaving the USHL to go to the CHL. Like you talked about it kind of getting supplanted. Do you think it will just get like demoted, or do you think it will just cease to exist?
No, I don't think it'll cease to exist. I mean, I still think there are American kids who want to play in the USHL. Like if I wouldn't want to go to Canada to play junior if I didn't have to.
Fair enough.
I don't know how I would feel about pushing it back because I do love the and you're right. I think we've talked about this before, but like NFL first round pick, you are drafting at the very least a starter, and you hope like a Pro Bowl level player. And if you're in the top 10, you're legitimately like shooting to get a Hall of Famer. In the top 10 of the NHL draft, you are hoping to get a star player, maybe who could be a face of the franchise type. And depending on the draft, at pick 12, you have a similar chance of hitting on a future NHL player as you do at pick 30. Like it's because you are projecting so much. I agree with Colby that if you push it back a year, you're in closer to the NFL where you're like, okay, first round, let's actually bank on getting a guy here. And it's not really a crapshoot that it is if you're not at the top of the draft. But I love in the NHL being like, who do they got coming? And like,
well, you would still have that.
Yeah.
Guys can still get drafted and play in college, but you're giving them just that one extra year of like not feeling the pressure to go pro.
Yeah, okay.
You can kind of like sit with it and grow a little bit more without having an NHL team saying like, we want you now.
I used to love when I covered the Bruins, like checking on like how's like, oh, Krejci's hurt. He keeps getting hurt. How's Ryan Spooner doing? You know, like look up that type of shit and be like, you know what, he's probably a couple years away. But then like Chad be like, hey, is he putting any on? Is he put on any weight? Yeah, maybe next year, like doing all that stuff. I think that we might lose a little bit of that stupid. And granted, that is for like beat writers and mega fans to do. So not everybody is doing that anyway. But I would hate to lose that kind of psychotic thing that also exists in baseball. Yeah, but definitely doesn't exist in football.
You're
in the NBA.
You're also talking about losing a year of like generational players. Like you'd be a year less.
But they'd be in college now. So the college game is like. It's that much cooler, right? Like imagine watching Connor Bedard play at Boston College.
I guess like the trade-off is kind of tough to wrestle with, like knowing that you like the idea of like Connor McDavid not being able to play his year 18 season in the 18-year-old season in the NHL. Like Macklin Celebrini watching him this year, absolutely ready, absolutely deserves to be in the NHL. Tough to like wrestle with having to push that back when those guys are ready, but that's also a minuscule percentage.
Oh, you know
of the
who?
players.
And it would become the norm,
right?
You know,
you know who won't be on board with that? Players. Why? That's 1 year of their hockey playing career that they are not earning and burning off a year of their entry level contract. So they like when you are a player.
Well, they could go as a freshman, sign at the end of the year of their freshman year, and burn
like you would have to do that universally. That would be, or like you shorten the length of entry level contracts. So something would need to be done on the other side to get guys to UFA by 26 or 27 if they can beat it there.
You also mentioned like guys aren't necessarily always ready at 18, 19 years old. That doesn't necessarily change by pushing things back a year, because part of that readiness can be the schedule, adjusting to the schedule, adjusting to the grind. So I don't know. It's like kind of like a fascinating thing to wrestle with. I did want to ask you, college hockey, it seems like it's in the best place that it's been in like a long time, if not ever.
Yes and no. I still think there are a lot of improvements that could be made. Like, for example, the NCAA tournament, to me, like having neutral sites still is a little ridiculous. Like, I think college football just changed their format, right? Like, they're now doing 12 teams and first round is at the school.
Yeah.
I think that's awesome. We saw, I think it was this past year, BU should have been the host school, right? Like, I think they were the top seed and they had to go to like Fargo to play North Dakota or go to Sioux Falls, South Dakota to play against North Dakota. And they were the higher seed. And that's essentially an away game.
Wasn't there like also a host site last year in the tournament that was like a 4,000 seat building or something?
There was.
Like
I think it was St. Louis.
Yeah.
It was Lindenwood.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. And that was just
Michigan State played there.
And that was just because they needed to like hit a qualification to host the Frozen Four, like the final, like this year or something like that. Yeah, I think that can definitely be tweaked. But like in terms of product, in terms of interest, college hockey better than it's been in a long time.
Yeah, it's in a great
best
spot.
Since like because when you said is like the best shape, I think initially you said like best shape it's ever been, and I was like
in my life,
right, like the late 90s. Maybe it's nostalgia on my part, or maybe just that I grew up in Boston, but like. It was an event to go to a BU game in 1997, and you're watching Chris Drury and like all like those guys were low. I guess I don't know if they were national celebrities, but like they were for sure celebrities. Boston College, same sort of deal where you see all these guys who now we talk about as NHL legends. I feel like I don't know if I just lost touch with college hockey, even though I went to college between then and now. Now we do have like Pete will say like, "Hey, I'm watching the BC game tonight because I got to watch so and so," and like that's an easy game to find, and people are watching it and they're excited about that guy. I feel like that sort of went away for a little bit. Like I don't remember when I was at UNH, people coming and being like, "Time to watch JVR," even though he's the number 2 pick in the draft. Like I think that excitement is definitely there in a bigger and louder way than it's been in forever.
Clubbers makes a good point too. Like college hockey is important to grow the sport in smaller markets, like markets where the NHL can never extend across the country.
Orono, Maine.
Yeah, great example.
And even in like
ASU,
Arizona, I was going to say like they carry the water for hockey in Arizona now.
We all silly like the mayor.